asked everybody.
There you
There
go.
it is. This will be something I'll post probably after the call, like on the post on the page.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking of, like trying to demystify like what this is. And I'm actually so excited to do this because, in terms of marketing and what real estate agents do, it's like we host seller seminars and we host buyer seminars. And some people don't know if they're sellers or buyers. And so to just host like you're a homeowner seminar, like why don't we just talk about home ownership and not like everything else in between?
Yeah,
Um,
no, it's great to mix it up a little bit. This is the perfect lens for us.
just approachable. I feel bad that I don't know who the Zoom user is.
Maybe they want to stay incognito, anonymous.
That's true. That's totally fine. I just want to make sure that they could hear or anything. Um, do you think I should give it another 2 minutes? Do you want us to get going?
Yeah, another minute's fine, no problem.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. Like, I think Greg, I know we haven't met. Hi. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
You don't have to turn your video on. Please don't.
Nice to meet you. I'm trying to figure out my video stuff. One moment.
Even if you don't get on, that's perfectly fine. It's 6:30 on a Wednesday. I know everyone's got some stuff going on. Now, I don't mind the person being anonymous. It's just more of like I want to make sure I answer their questions. It's like speaking out into the void. My mystery. It's like mystery date. Who's behind door number?
I have a feeling I know who it is. It could be someone we know.
Wow. Um, okay. Well, like I said, I'll give it one more minute.
Yeah, people might just join kind of as you're talking to. Who knows?
Yeah. I just know, let me see if my buddy, he was texting me. Um, Let me see if he's gonna jump on.
Jillian, is it true that have you done a decent amount of selling or buying work in our particular kind of little area? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, lots of, even if it's not like closed work, I feel like I'm over there showing a good bit. Um, it's such a good little nook.
Yeah, it's kind of a little hidden gem. But
It,
so Wilton Woods as well is a nice little area too. We have a good amount of folks on the within our Clermont Woods neighborhood page that lives kind of, I'd say, within a good 2 or 3 miles. So it's not just Clermont Woods, it's a little bit wider than that.
yeah. That, it's good to know that on the Facebook page too, or where it's all being marketed because I mean, just like most neighborhoods, like they start to blend, from one street to another. So in terms of doing my market research here, I did um try to select outside, not specifically Wilton Woods, because I think Wilton Woods actually behaves a bit differently in terms of marketing, and history and building and all those sorts of things, a little differently than the Claremont location. Not to
Yeah.
say, I mean, y'all are kind of like parallel to each other, so you could be similar in some aspects, but like overall, I do hear people say like, I want to live in Claremont because of this reason, or I want to live in Wilton Woods because of this reason, so you hear those differentials, but you don't hear differences like, you and I were just texting about Carrybrook versus Claremont. And like, you don't hear a lot of those differences though, of like, I want to live in Carrybrook over Claremont. Like those tend to blend more than like the Wilton Woods area. Because Wilton Woods historically too had a lot of that like, um, I want to say like an old money, like almost like that Bellhaven charm. Like there was such, not to say that it still is not in a heyday, but there actually was a really cool heyday of it. Um, Back in like the 70s, 80s of like the place to be. Like there was this like
How do
um
you? Uh,
What? Zoom user?
testing the audio. It's kind there was kind of like yeah. Well, no, that's interesting to know. I mean, like I bought in 15. I don't know when did you buy, Greg?
A little bit before that.
Yeah, yeah. So we're I guess I don't know. We're considered probably the newer homeowners than some of the other folks here. This the neighborhood's kind of turning from people retiring and selling. So it's been interesting the last few years.
Yeah. So it's actually so I mean, now that it's like 6:35-ish or beyond, I'm happy to talk about, as I was mentioning, like the marketing and what's going on in the market, what's going on in the neighborhood, and jump into that. Because you were talking about selling and who's selling and when selling. And I didn't just pull the last year of information for the neighborhood. I actually pulled this year and the year previous just to see, do your springs have trends? Do your falls have trends? Like, is there any sort of trending that Claremont owners should be aware of? And what I found to be the most like kind of intriguing thing was that the number of sales in 2025 is over double what they were in 2024. So you actually really had like a pause in your sales for like a big significant period of time versus over this last year. So I think that would be something worth digging into even harder for any sort of, like if you really were thinking like, hey, I'm going to strategize selling, what timing should I do? We talked once too about military, and you think about people who are in, the service that they have to transfer every 2 years. Like, are you on a 2 year rotation versus like the 1 year where standard, like Marines, Armies, Coast Guard, things are, Navy, things of that nature, like every June, the door opens up and you get a lot of military swing in and swing out. So you're really not working on that sort of calendar, but you have State Department that is on a longer term, residences or orders to be in one location over another. So I thought that was really interesting to see that y'all's 2024 to 2025 was vastly different in how many sales were in the neighborhood. I mean, just as a neighborhood, you know, resident, was there anything that you thought was significant between 2024 and 2025?
And I'm sure Greg can chime in on this too. I definitely did not see as many signs and as much activity at all in 24. I think that there was it seemed a lot slower. It was kind of hit or miss, here and there. There'd be someone selling for a specific reason. But yeah, I mean, I could definitely tell, especially the early part of 24, what was going on.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I have a couple like a little cheat sheet-ish. Your spring, I mean, it was April, May, June, and then it went to August, October, November. I mean, December. It was pretty slow considering. Greg, did you have any other thoughts on that
I
being?
was just say Doge has really impacted this area with everybody losing jobs and work worried about losing that. So I just assume that's been impacted. Why the 25 numbers are skewed.
Yeah, just seeing more people in your neighborhood specifically, maybe being in the position of employment needing
Yeah.
to relocate. I mean, and that could be very true. Because that is very relevant. And then also keeping on the theme, and if y'all received the invite this evening, we are hoping to do a series of it. And tonight's series detail is talking about that crystal ball and marketing and what to see in the future and kind of what's happening now. Um, but for the most part, you really only have two listings online, so you would be considered in a seller's market over a buyer's market. So y'all are still doing well, even though I will say from a macro level, of course, no one wants their home sitting in those two listings. They're not, flying off the market right now. But that is with what is happening in the market right now, people were feeling and seeing that the furloughs were coming. So not just from the date of the furlough starting to the furlough coming to an end when it does, you start projecting things, right? So the market is reacting before it actually takes action. So even before the furloughs, every I shouldn't say every market, a lot of Northern Virginia market really did slow down. Um, and it has continued to stay slow. And one of the main reasons is because anyone who works for the government, even if they're going in and they are not getting their paychecks, you cannot be approved for a loan. So if you are under contract and we were supposed to go to closing, and all of a sudden the government shut down, you actually are no longer approved for a loan because the lender cannot approve and get that the assurance that you're still employed because they call in right before closing to confirm your employment, to make sure you haven't quit, to make sure you haven't been fired. And during the government shutdown, you're not able to contact people. So, in this season right now, on a bit of a Northern Virginia or Alexandria area, more of a macro level outside of Claremont, that is a huge impact on our market. This fall is going to be slower than, a normal fall. Typically around September, you see a good uptick, and things are still selling. It's not that they won't, but the buyer demand is just, it has to be slower because buyers aren't even approved to move forward because of these impacts on our residents. So yes, the economy is impacted as a whole, but the people who actually live here, boots on the ground, and are supposed to be going into the office, like they can't get loans.
Are sellers being are working with the buyers and giving them extensions?
I would say yes and no. I mean, some contracts are going to protect you anyway. Some sellers are being understanding, and they are claiming a deposit or a part of a deposit just to say, hey, you have to understand from my standpoint too, like this is hurting me financially by you not moving forward on it. So I have not seen really, those kind of like scary stories. I've seen most people working together. I think a lot of people are being sympathetic right now, and are trying to negotiate an agreement amongst the two versus, you could really stick hard to the contract and say, sorry, you're in default and you didn't have a financing contingency protecting you. So, buyer, you actually, like, I could see you in court because the contract doesn't actually state that you know, the seller's only entitled to your deposit. The contract reads that they can either take your deposit and say, we're settled, or they can take you to court. So do people really want to take people to court? Not really. And that's true of almost any market, but it is possible. But I'm not seeing a lot of people saying, like, to your buyer, no, you're not allowed to get out of this contract. I'll see you later, because I think they understand this is completely out of their control. It's
I'm
not like,
assuming if the shutdown remains till the end of the year, that's going to be a big problem for a lot of buyers and sellers.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's the thing too. It's like right now I've had more like buyer meetings and seller meetings, but collectively among agents, like I hear time and time again, they say, hey, I don't have any listings for the end of the year. They're going to list in the spring because there's just so much uncertainty right now. And I think everyone believes that the government isn't going to be shut down for that much longer. Or that's everyone's hope. But then they get nervous about getting into the holidays. Like, do they really want to be listing their home over the Thanksgiving weekend while they have to have the house? They're going to be hosting family, or they're going to be traveling, or they have, family that they need a Christmas tree, and Santa Claus comes and does all that. So it's like the next, people do list homes between now and the end of the year, but I think there's a lot more reason now to hold on than there has been in other fall markets. So talking about that crystal ball, kind of trying to keep on my invite point, right? Trying to keep it all together.
I'll
Um,
let you get to that. I'll let you get to
no,
that.
no, 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 no. I think all of this talks about the crystal ball. I'm just trying to, like, get back to like the theme. I like to stay on themes. Is I think you are going to see a good bit of activity of listings coming this spring. Um, even though you had a 2025, if sellers have the ability to hold tight, most sellers are holding tight. So that is something to consider and think about, just in terms of what is the crystal ball? Like, what is your market going to look like next year? Um, of course, it's crystal ball. No one has any idea. But if you have to use some of this knowledge and the assumptions that you can make on what is going on in the world around us, um, that's a big key factor. Another key factor are the interest rates. The Fed announced today that the interest rate was going to be reduced, but the Fed interest rate and mortgage interest rates, they don't move on the same day. So mortgage interest rates, they project out, like they believed already that the Fed was going to lower rates. So they already lowered their mortgage interest rate. So it is already taking into account what that effect is going to have on the market. So 3 days ago, you could have received a really good mortgage interest rate because they assumed that the rates were going to go down. So they were ready to act on that. Um, so mortgage interest rates are ticking down, the Fed rates are ticking down. And that's another assumption that I am hearing all over the media. Um, and that is something that everyone's buyers are listening to, right? And even as a seller, you're listening to is, if the interest rates keep saying they're coming down, oh, they're coming down, they're projected to come down next year, that also can cause some hesitation um, in your buyer pool. So thinking 2025, it's been busy. This fall has really taken a bit of a slowdown. I don't know if you're really going to see any more tick up for the rest of the year. Um, so wanted to touch on interest rates as well. Um, so I have a quick list, so I want to make sure I touch on everything. And of course, anyone chime in with questions as they have them. I wanted to talk about the market, want to talk about the rates, wanted to talk about the Clermont market. And honestly, y'all's market is relatively pretty strong. Y'all are able to get homes going under contract in an average of about 30 days. And I would say that average is a little higher due to there's a number of listings that have sat for a long period of time. And when you dive in and really take a look at them, they can sometimes sit out as an outlier of the condition of the home, the pricing of the home. It doesn't really fall in the same category of what your average home is. Your average price point is in the 700-ish, if you will, price point. So if you have something that is on the higher end, like there's one right now listed at 900,000, it's not potentially going to be where that $900,000 purchaser could be thinking they would find a home is in the Claremont market because they're understanding that it's more of a $700,000 uh, average price point for the neighborhood. So those overall thinking of like how quickly your house will sell, I would like to give a ton of assurance to sellers that, if you put your house online and you prep it correctly with, we always advise just a good neutral paint color. Give yourself some good landscaping, but it doesn't have to be re-landscape your front yard. It could just be mulching the front yard, making sure the leaves are raked up throughout the fall, those sorts of things. Like, don't think you have to plant trees and new flowers and go out on hardscaping. Like, that is not going to have a good return on investment for you all. But just making sure that it looks really clean, really fresh. It doesn't even have to be completely updated. But between those two things, making sure your light bulbs are all matching, really bright spaces. And then the last one is you can tell that the homes that have chosen to use staging furniture actually are selling with more of an escalation, faster, that sort of thing. Again, on a macro level, that is also true. So if you have that opportunity to move out of your home, do a few minor things, not invest too much money in the resale, with the painting, the light bulbs, and the mulch, and then get the staging in, you are going to have so much more success on your sales. And that is proving true of Claremont. Uh, it is common that you're getting a lot of first time or second time buyers into your neighborhood. So having something that is move-in ready is actually really appealing. There can be projects here and there that someone can take on, but it cannot be like a kitchen gut and a bathroom gut and the basement floor needs to be redone. You need to allow them just to be able to have maybe one or two versus every one of them. For this area, a lot of people enjoy charm. So that's going back to not everything has to be completely gutted and have subway tile and be, on trend for this year. So that is not something I would really overthink. So think more like plug and place versus complete renovation. And our goal is that after this call, like I said, we're going to have a series of these to really dive into what type of investments you should be making in your property in order to get out of it, a good return on investment. So there's that one. Anyone have any questions on that?
No, I think the updating thing is really, really important point. And I think something that we all think about whether we're going to sell tomorrow or in 10 years, right? Yeah, no, that's something we all like go back and forth about is like how far do you go? Are you actually if you put in more in some of these renovations, these updates, are you going to you actually going to kind of negatively affect your property or
Yeah.
not get the money out of that? I have some neighbors that have done some really ridiculous renovations to like almost like a South Beach hotel level and in Alexandria. So I'm like, oh, I wonder how that'll go on the back end. But
Yeah.
it's
Well,
interesting.
I have two opinions on that. It's your home, you bought it, you should do whatever you want. So you don't always have to think about return on investment when you're doing things to your home because it is yours, it is your safe place. You should make it however you want to make it, right? We have clients tear down walls that I would never recommend doing because you're losing a bedroom. But they're like, my dream is to have this huge closet. I'm like, you dream. You dream all you want because you have to live there. You have earned that right. You have bought your own house. That's the beauty of home ownership, right? Is that you get to make whatever renovations you want. Um, and I'm really looking forward to that call of going through all those things and discussing like what type of renovations people have been doing or which ones they're thinking about doing, because there is that double element of it and thinking and telling people too when I walk through their homes with them is it's not always that hard. Like take down the wall, make it whatever you want it to be. And before you sell, just know like I'll just build that wall back up. And maybe when you get the quote to take it down, get the quote to put it back up. If it's something that you know is going to be like super custom, maybe one of those questions that you ask to your contractor is, here's this, and if I want to undo what I did, how much is that going to cost? And the cost of it's going to change over time, right? Like you're hoping to live in this home for years and down the road, what is that? Um, so you can at least have that in your back pocket of like, okay, when I go to sell, I know I'm gonna have to potentially invest X, but I know I will get the Y out and I know I get to enjoy every section of the home as I live in it. Um, so that's one. And then, we can go in talking about like bathtubs. We've been in homes where they rip out all the bathtubs, and as long as you don't change the space, we can put out call outs. So there's a lot of good marketing pieces. That we use in our listings when there could be something that someone has over improved to meet their custom needs. And we'll go out and get a quote or, a professional opinion about, hey, this can be remade again without it being, an astronomical amount of money. So I want to guide people in telling them, especially while they're owning the home, like these are safe investments versus these are ones that could, on the back end, become more costly. So I'm excited to dive into that. Knowing that we were looking to keep the call just around 30 minutes, unless everyone had a lot of questions, I at least wanted to open it up. I know, uh, Todd, you're on here. Greg, did you have any questions for me?
What does you talked about more about street curb appeal, or at least that's what I was gathering from what your comments were. What about patio appeal versus just having a all grass backyard and putting in a patio? Does that give a homeowner a return on investment, or is that really more just for personal use?
So I would say the patio is definitely a return on investment. I would always advise that if you're going to put it in, I think you will definitely see those dollars back. Um, but it's one of those things too that is subjective to like how much are you going to invest in your patio? And that is a specific one that would happily do it for someone. And I'm sure if you have an agent that you're working with, they would happily look at it with you is seeing if there is a trend in your neighborhood. It's like, hey, there is an exact number because all of the sales have patios, but you can see that the ones in the neighborhood over don't. So, and they're not selling as easily. So you might want to consider it. But I think the patio is a really common space that people really enjoy. When they walk back, they want to go, wow, versus like, wait, why? I don't know where I'm going to put my grill. And it's also really fun to stage those. It makes them look very, giving that new home appeal and allowing people to move into the space and visualize themselves there. So I think patio definitely helps with curb appeal. And I'll go back to I was saying like don't add trees. Like if you live on the busy road, adding trees might be your solution. I live on a very busy road and I am buying trees like crazy right now. I'm not going to sell the house tomorrow, but I want them to mature and I know being on a busy road is going to impact my resale. So I know paying $600 a piece for these trees are going to return an investment for, or it is an investment for me, to be able to get a return on my home sale. Um, so what other questions?
You were mentioning earlier about how how Clermont Woods is has its kind of own identity, I guess, in some ways. Do you could you elaborate a little bit more on like, what buyers seem to like in this particular area? I mean, is there a specific obviously nothing's walkable at this time, but the elementary school, middle school, and high school are within like 2 or 3 miles. But is there anything else, any other kind of, local info that would be relevant to why people desire to move here and live in this neighborhood?
I think those pieces, it's a not every neighborhood has a community, and I think Claremont, especially if you're able to portray that in your listing write-ups, is really important because, as you can tell here, even just having this Facebook meetup tonight, and I've known it firsthand, having clients who live in the neighborhood, just really enjoying being able to walk out of that street and you get that hometown feel. So I think that's a big one. It's a very developed neighborhood. This sounds silly, but it has mature trees and it's a really good price point when people don't want to live outside of Alexandria. They need to have easy commute. They might need metro access. Um, it's affordable versus living on the other side of the Beltway. So those are big things because you're also getting good livable space. If any of y'all are familiar with living in a community like Del Rey, they're just very tight spaces. Same price point. You're just not, you might get the same number of bedrooms, and you're going to get that walkability, but you're going to be on top of each other. And going back to military, to people who are moving in from out of town to work government positions or, just have lived in Nebraska and they're moving to town, like Old Town's actually a little overwhelming to them, but they still want that easy commute. Y'all's community is one of those like first communities that you reach when leaving those like city limits and getting outside the beltway so that you're not too far away from that type of commuting, but you still have that affordability and you have that space. So those I think are really big elements um, that play into that.
Do buyers pay attention to like when they're driving through or they're looking at your listings or you're showing a house like if there's like a ton of commercial vehicles like parked at different houses or lots of cars at individual houses, is there a visual that kind of takes away from a neighborhood or doesn't, maybe it's a neutral perspective, but do buyers pay attention to that like when they're driving through?
Oh yeah, I think buyers definitely pay attention to that. I mean, even there's sometimes when you can drive on a street and there's cars just line both sides, and you can't even take two cars down the road at the same time, and you gotta weave in and out. And you're like, there's too many cars compared to the homes, and so that could just mean like a level of congestion that people aren't interested in living in. Especially if you're living in the suburbs and you're moving to this type of community. That's not what you really visualize when you are envisioning what that community looks like for you. Um, I've heard that be a turnoff. Not to say people won't buy it. I mean, sometimes it doesn't bother people, but I think that's something that is more appealing to think like parking is easy. Like parking, people having easier parking. And if the streets are lined with cars, then they get this projection like, I don't want to come home. Again, living in the suburbs, I have a driveway. I don't want to tandem park my car because I don't know the two of us are living here and I don't know whose car is going to leave first. That sort of thing. So that is an ease of parking is something that we get in terms of a request. So that could also play into that answer.
Okay, I think we have like 2 minutes left, but I think it's important to understand, how you all can help our members in different ways. I know the way you helped me and our family was through a few rentals. You were very patient with us while we were searching for our dream home, and we finally found it here in Clermont Woods. But yeah, please tell us a little bit about kind of, how you can help other homeowners in the area, all the different stuff you do, and I think that would be helpful for them to
Oh,
know.
absolutely. I would hope that this homeowner series is kind of a little segue into that is, you don't have to sell tomorrow with me. You don't have to think that once you engage with myself and my team, like there's no immediate need for you to act on anything. We are really a resource here to help you navigate, hey, I'm going to sell in a year, I'm going to sell in 2 years. What improvement should I be making? What timing of the market should I be targeting? Should I rent my house out instead of selling it? we're here long game. I mean, Todd, I've known you for almost my entire career. I mean, and it's been 16 years. Like, so I've known you a long time. And so I don't leave staying in touch with people who believe that, I am educated and good at my job. And you also know that I'm not going to like sell you on anything. So it's really easy. Follow me on Instagram, Jillian Hogan Homes. I do a lot of educational pieces there. Sorry, we're not going to have a timer on it next time. I promise. So I hate that I'm wrapping this up so quickly. But Jillian Hogan Homes, follow us on Instagram. The invite has my contact information on it. Like, just know that it's very casual. I work at your pace. So, just reach out whenever you need me. And after this, feel free to either get in touch with Todd via the Facebook group or shoot us an email and we will keep you posted on our next series. We'll get that going. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah,